Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Are you into true crime?
Do you like unsolved mysteries?
Strange and forgotten history?
Bizarre alien abductions and classified science experiments? Then check out Cruelty Podcast.
We're your hosts, Willow Ahava, along with my best friend and next door neighbor,
Lillian Asterius, and my husband, Merriweather Asterius. Maris, say hi.
Hello.
Maris, short for Merriweather, and I host Maris Mondays as a bonus episode each week to start your Monday with something strange and unusual.
While the rest of the week, Lillian and I present a true crime case under a monthly theme and feature known and not so known cases. We've done everything from Vampire Month to honeymoon murders to cannibal killers.
Cruelty Podcast is an independent podcast made possible by our Patreon members. If you would like ad-free listening plus additional episodes and perks, find Cruelty Podcast at patreon.com/cruelty.
Whoa, that's 4 whole episodes a week.
Linktree/Cruelty has links to all our social media accounts as well as our Discord channel. Cruelty Podcast is a member of the Podmoth Network.
This podcast contains strong language and adult situations and may not be suitable for those who are easily offended. Welcome, fuckers. I'm Kay.
And I'm Jay.
And you're listening to the Fuck My Work Life podcast, where the work stories are real, the laughs are large, and most of us can agree, work sucks. So let's clock out and tune in. Welcome back, fuckers. I'm Kay.
I'm Jay. Welcome back, fuckers.
And this is not a typical episode.
No.
So what we are doing, we started watching the TV show Severance on Apple TV Plus, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And Jay was immediately like, we should recap this show.
Yeah.
Given the topic of it. So we decided to do that. But
it's only going to be for our patrons on Patreon.
Yeah, so you guys, everyone's going to get this first episode on the main feed, give you a little taste of it. And then the rest of them are going to be available on Patreon. So Patreon, $5 a month. You'll get these episodes. You'll get early access to our regular episodes. You'll get some stickers and shit. And I think we're going to start like maybe doing some fun movie things like stupid work type movies and stuff. I don't know exactly what we're going to do with those. We'll have like a watch party or I don't know, but stuff like that. Trying to come up with some fun stuff for our Patreon. So you can follow the link in the show notes to join. We'd love to have you. But in the meantime, for this episode, there will be spoilers. So watch the episode before you listen because we are recapping the episode. So can't not have spoilers. So, Severance. Let's get into it.
All right.
Maybe we should wait till this airplane flies over.
I know. It's that time of day, though, so they're going to constantly
be
taking off.
Those dickheads.
Yeah.
How dare they be alive in the world?
We are in our new studio.
Yeah.
Which is our second bedroom. We bought some sound deadening material, put it over the window.
Not deadening the airplanes.
I noticed. No. I mean, it doesn't sound deaden everything. More is trying to get rid of echo and stuff like that. Yeah,
like sometimes we sounded like we were in a tin can and we couldn't freaking figure out why.
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, I guess, do you want me to start then?
Open scene.
Opening scene.
There is a woman lying on a table and it looks like you're looking through like an 80s TV screen to see her on this table.
Yeah, it's this completely just downward facing shot.
Yeah.
The room looks very plain but geometric, dull. Like almost like a 2D video game back from the 80s. It's very strange. And she's just in this she looks passed out.
Yeah.
She's dressed nicely, like professionally, but she's in this really freaking awkward position, just passed out in the middle of this big conference table.
What were your first thoughts when you saw her?
Well, let's talk about before we even see anything. We just hear, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And then we get this shot of her on this table.
And you
hear this voice coming out of, there's just this like totally 80s looking intercom sitting on this conference table, this old technology looking intercom. And to me, it felt like a horror film, like almost like a Saw situation where she's in this room. It looks like she's either been drugged or fucking partied hard and passed out, but there's no evidence of any kind of partying happening,
Yeah. So before we watched this, you told me about it. And then I looked it up to see what it was about. So I kind of knew what the gist, we're not going to give it away yet, but I kind of knew what the gist was about this show. And my first thought was like, oh shit, they raped this girl.
Oh, yeah. It kind of looked like the beginning of a Law & Order SVU
Yeah, because it's like a meeting table with chairs around it. There's no one else in the room, but she's sprawled on this table. And I was like, oh, okay.
But she's fully clothed. So, but yeah, so it's very strange. So she's laying there. This voice comes out of this box. Intercom box, like, who are you? Who are you? She starts to kind of rouse. Is that the right word? Rouse, awake. Like, starts to kind of wake up, and she's obviously disoriented and like, where the fuck am I? Who's talking to me out of this intercom? And she understandably starts to freak the fuck out, right? She's pacing around the room. She's looking for an exit. There's no windows. There's no art. The walls look padded and almost like cage-like. It's like this grid. It's really weird.
Yeah, and before she starts pacing around the room, she says hello to the intercom. And then the intercom, the guy just starts in with like, we want you to take a 5-question survey.
Yeah.
And she's like, fuck you, I'm not taking your survey. Yeah, and she starts like walking around the room looking for an exit.
Yeah, like she finds the door and she's banging on the door, like, let me out. She like trying to open the door. It's locked, obviously. And the intercom is like, no, just take this survey. It'll make you feel right as rain. And it's this kind of chipper but robotic like way of speaking. It's really weird. She's kind of starts to tire herself out, like trying to open the door, and she falls to the floor, and she's like, fine, like, I'll take your stupid survey or whatever.
Yeah. And then she asks, fine, I'll take your survey. What do I get at the end?
Yeah.
And he answers, well, that depends on your answers.
Yeah. And it's still feeling, even though I knew the premise of the show, it's still very much feeling like a serial killer, weird horror movie type of torture thing.
Oh, yeah. Because at this point, she's unknowing of what she did. Mm-hmm. She's definitely being held against her will.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first question is the question he started off with at the beginning of the show. Who are you? And she can't remember her name.
Yeah, she can't remember her name.
And he tells her, it's fine. You can answer unknown. Just like, this is not weird that you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And then you want to say the second question?
And then question 2 is, in which U.S. state or territory? In which U.S. state or territory were you born? She's even more confused and like, I don't know. Unknown. Okay. Next question.
Yeah. Name any U.S. state or territory.
Yeah. And at this point, she's annoyed.
Well, she's like, annoyed and confused.
You can tell she's annoyed and confused. And she's like, I don't know, Delaware?
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
What is Mr. Egan's favorite breakfast? And she's like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, that doesn't even make sense. And he's like, unknown. Okay. And question 5. What is or was the color of your mother's eyes? And then she's like, she starts like tuning into herself like, holy shit, I don't know anything about myself or anything else.
Yeah. Well, like this actress is amazing. I need to look up her name. But she, like, her face, like, he asks about her mom and her face kind of lights up and smiling, like thinking, oh, my mom. And then you just see like the smile dissolve and like she's overcome with, holy fuck, I can't even remember the color of my mother's eyes. And she's just completely freaking out. And she's like, what did you do to me?
Yeah.
And then that's when the door opens and we just...
No, he goes through the answers. He goes through her answers and he's like, okay, to recap, unknown, Delaware, unknown. And then the door opens.
Yeah. And we just see a silhouette of someone standing there.
Yeah.
And he was like, you got a perfect score.
Yeah, that's a perfect score.
And you're just like, what the fuck is happening in this show?
And then that scene ends and it clicks to the title screen.
Yeah.
Severance. And with Severance across the screen, you hear somebody crying.
Yeah.
Like a man. You can tell it's a man, but he's like,
yeah.
like crying.
Yeah. And then it shows this guy played by Adam Scott?
Yeah.
Is that
Adam
the name
Scott.
in real life? You know, Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Adam Scott, and he's just crying uncontrollably in his car. It's like the
Yeah.
dead of winter. Look, wherever they are, looks cold as fuck.
Yeah.
And he's just sobbing uncontrollably, like pulls a tissue out, blows his nose, and then
Wipes his tears, exits his car, and starts walking across the parking lot like most of us do every day when we get to work.
I'm, usually symbolically crying on the inside every time I have to walk into work. But this parking lot is full, and it looks like this huge building, but there's not a single person
There's
inside.
no one in the parking lot.
It's just him walking into this gigantic building.
Yeah, so the camera fades out, and it's a look at him walking into this huge office building. And he walks up to a desk and shows his badge.
Yeah, he walks up to this receptionist,
Yeah.
and there's nothing on this receptionist's desk.
No, it's nothing.
Like a phone materializes out of somewhere, but it's nothing. Everything's just barren.
Yeah, and she picks up the phone and asks if they're ready for him.
Yeah.
Or ready for Mr. Scout.
Yeah.
And then waves him on saying, go ahead.
Yeah, and she's got no emotion whatsoever. She's just staring at him as she's on the phone asking. And then he walks away, and we get another cool just overhead shot of this really stark but geometrical, the desk and the woman sitting at the desk in this lobby area.
Everything is very dull
in
this building, very dull and green. Everything's green.
Yeah,
green and
carpet,
white and green and gray.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if there's some symbolism there.
And then he walks through that little, it's like a man trap, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a man trap.
Oh no, that's after. That's after. He walks into the locker room.
Oh yeah, goes to the locker room. He takes his snow boots off.
Puts his driver's license, his watch,
his wallet,
the
badge he had on.
Yeah, the badge he had on. He grabs a different badge, puts dress shoes on, a different watch, puts it on. Like
a total boring, this watch just tells the time type of watch. There's not because I think the watch he took off, it looks like a nice complicated watch. There's probably a date and stuff on it. And this is just the time.
Plain Jane watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And exits the locker room, and then
goes to security.
Goes to the security guy, and he basically warns him.
Yeah.
Make sure he's not coming out of the locker room with any of his personal belongings.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
It's very sterile and weird.
TSA type.
Yeah. It's worse than TSA.
Yeah.
And then he gets in the elevator, and this is actually one of my favorite scenes from the show, because he gets in the elevator, he presses down, so we know he's going somewhere below ground.
Yeah. And he does not look happy.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's been crying in his car, and his face is swollen. He looks like shit. He looks miserable.
Yeah. And as it descends, you hear the elevator going, and you hear almost electronic sound of
yeah.
And his eyes start to flutter and roll back in his head, and then the elevator dings because he's at the basement, and his eyes pop open, and this little smirk goes across his face.
A completely different person.
Yeah. And he walks out of the elevator.
Well, the elevator doors open, and this 70s kind of lounge, uppity, upbeat music is playing, and he's just chipper and completely different person. There's actually some furniture in this lobby when he comes out of the elevator. Yeah. It's very 70s. Everything looks so retro, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because when you later on, we know it's
later
not
on you'll understand why it's weird.
But yeah, so he comes out of the elevator, and he starts this walk down this maze of just white hallways, and I timed it, and it's 1.5 minutes of just following his face as he's walking
through this maze of hallways. Yeah.
And just like he's a kind of a smirk, just kind of a slight smile on his face, like,
yeah,
I'm at work.
But as he's walking, the smile gets a little bigger, and you can tell he's like, I'm at work.
Yeah.
You know?
And he pulls like his used crying tissue out of his pocket and kind of looks at it strangely, like, where did this come from? And like throws it in the trash.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
It's really weird.
And then what happens next?
Then he walks into like, it's a big empty room, but there's only 4 desks that are like, not even, they look like cubicles, but they're not all closed in. It's just like 2 walls, and they're blocking you from seeing the person next to you and the person on either side of you. But you're all kind of facing towards the middle. They're like in a cross.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
You know, these 4 walls are in a cross, and there's one person on each corner of the cross. And there's only one guy in there at the time. And they never said his name.
I think they did at some point, but I don't remember what it is.
He sits down, and they start bantering back and forth.
Yeah. And it's, again, like their computers look completely outdated.
Oh, yeah.
Their lights on their desk look completely outdated. Everything just looks like old technology, outdated.
It's the old computers where all of the text on the screen is green.
Yeah.
It's,
and and they're bantering about where's Petey? Is Petey out sick? And
oh, yeah.
And he's like, well, he better not be out sick because I got to get this report done. If he's not here to see it, like blah, blah, blah,
blah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, just basic banter.
Yeah.
And then Irv walks in, which we don't know his name is Irv at the time, but we learn later that his name is Irv.
So he's like, what's for dinner tonight, kids? And they're like, we hate that joke. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And they start, talking about, back in my day, they used to incentivize coffee creamer.
Yeah.
So we know this guy's probably been there for a long time. But everyone's wondering where their 4th coworker is because he's just absent.
And then Mark is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Scott's name is Mark Scout.
Yep.
And he turns on his computer, and that's when you get the first view of like where he works.
Yeah.
And it's called Lumen.
Lumen.
Lumon.
Is it Industries?
Yeah,
or
I think so.
Technologies or something like that. So they're talking, and then I'm guessing some sort of manager walks in and calls for Mark and says that, the boss lady wants to see him.
Yeah. And the funny part is this guy walks in, and you can tell they don't like to see this guy.
Yeah, because they all kind of turn around and stare.
Yeah, they all just like popped to attention, but sat at their desk except for Irv. Irv stood up and was just like, oh, hi, Mr. Militich.
Yeah.
And then they asked Mark to go see Miss Coben?
Yeah, Coben, something like that. And I think at this point too, we kind of see on the door the name of their department, which is Macro Data Refinement.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck that means.
Exactly. Whatever the fuck that means.
So he, Mr. Middleditch? Middle Dick?
Mr. Militich. Yeah.
So they're walking down the hallway, and he tells Mark, she's just moved to a new office. You better compliment her on her new office or whatever. And they walk in there, and it's Patricia Arquette.
Yeah, it's Patricia Arquette.
Is the boss, and she just looks at him and basically tells him he looks like shit. You look hungover, and he looks surprised, like he looks down at himself, and he's like, oh, okay, weird. And what does she do? She sets a card. Oh no,
Mr. Militich plugs in the speaker. On her desk,
the little
and
intercom.
Says that the board will be part of this meeting.
Yeah, and there's just silence, and you kind of hear some crackling, and he's like, oh, hello to the board, and nothing is said.
Yeah. And so he introduces himself. He says, I'm Mark, and says, I assume this is about me acting as floor chief today. And then he's explaining that he had subbed for Petey before, and she interrupts him and says, Petey is no longer with the company. So he's a goner.
Yeah.
And
Mr. Middle Dick. I'm just going to call him Middle Dick. He's like, that's a shame, yours was my favorite office friendship or something like that.
Yeah, your friendship was my favorite office friendship.
And it's really weird. Like both the boss, what's her name? Miss
Coben.
Miss Coben and Mr. Middledick are both just very emotionless.
Deadpan.
Like
Yeah.
they're saying things that normally, like if you're talking to someone, you're like, okay, but there's no emotion
There's nothing there
behind it. It's very creepy. So yeah, Petey's gone. And so now Mark is going to be taking over his position as, what is it, chief something?
Yeah, the department chief.
You know, Mark is like, well, what happened to Petey?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't tell you because that would be you.
Yeah,
an
due to some
assault.
privacy shit.
No,
yeah.
he was like, it would be an assault on Petey's privacy by you. It was just like really fucking weird.
Yeah.
So they switch out his key cards. I guess you have a different key card when you're management. And his boss tells him a handshake is available upon request.
Upon request.
And he just
he
kind of
asks,
stares
she
at her.
gives, and tell him he'll be shadowed today.
And then he's like walking out and he turns around and he's like, thanks the board.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, they will not be joining us vocally.
Yeah.
It's like so strange.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's definitely like a good mysterical start to an episode, if that's a word.
Yeah, and it's, anyone that has nightmares about working an office job, this is going to really solidify those nightmares. But basically they tell him he's going to do an orientation, and Irv is going to be shadowing him, and they hand him this like notebook, 3-ring binder notebook, which is his kind of guide to do this orientation. And then they're led into like a little tiny room. And I found it funny that the Militich. Are you sure that's what it is?
It's Mr. Militich.
I like Middle Dick.
Mr. Middledick is fine with me too.
Middle Dick, middleman. Ooh, there you go. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's like plugging in a computer. Like, why isn't it set up? Right? Like,
I don't know.
Setting up this equipment for this orientation.
I found it weird that Mr. Militich looks like he doesn't do anything but what that woman says.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's classic. It's classic
he's
bureaucracy.
But anyway, Irv and Mark are just chilling.
Yeah.
And he's setting everything up. It's probably some sort of security thing. Like, you're not allowed to touch this because, you might try to steal it.
But like, why isn't it just already there and plugged in? Which makes me think that they don't do orientations very often.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And also there's some banter between Irv and Mark. Do you want to take some time? Are you upset about Petey? And he's like, nope, I'm fine. Everything's great. Like, no emotions down here. Not allowed to care about anything. You know? It's really, really creepy. Now we're getting the other side of that opening scene.
Yes.
We hear what's going on behind that intercom that the woman was hearing, right?
Yeah.
He's frantically flipping through
he's
notebook,
definitely like freaking out.
Trying to say the right things.
As she's getting agitated.
Yeah. And she's banging on the door and they're both just on the other side of that door. Like, oh my God, she's going to break through this door. This isn't supposed to be happening. And Irv was trying to calm him down and just be like, it's okay. Just follow the script.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
And then it clicks to Mr. Middledick walking into Mrs. Coble's office asking if she's seeing this happen.
Yeah.
She says, yeah, she's watching.
Well, yeah, but it's just like deadpan. I'm watching. She doesn't even acknowledge the guy when he walks into the room.
No.
It's weird.
And then it's the end of the questions, and Mark walks into the room and sits down explaining that he messed up because he forgot to go over the preamble before he started the questions. And the preamble was like some bullshit.
Yeah.
Just some
it's like
some fake bullshit like welcome, blah, 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 blah.
And she asks him, am I livestock?
Yeah. Am I livestock?
Was I grown for food?
Yeah.
And he's like, we wouldn't dress you nice and do your nails. And we just grow a whole human for food. Which is, I thought that was an interesting thing to ask. You know, of all I wouldn't be thinking, am I being grown for food? I'd be thinking, are you a murderer? And are you about to torture and kill me?
And then eat me. She asks, okay, what's my name?
Yeah.
And he tells her, Helly R.
Helly R.
He starts going over the predetermined speech that says she has been hired to a position on the severed floor of Lumen Industries. She still looks confused. The what floor? He continues with a speech about the work-life balance and asks her to imagine herself as a seesaw. This is the best part. As soon as he gets the word seesaw out, she picks up that speaker that's on the desk and chucks it at his head.
Yeah, and he barely flinches.
Yeah.
Right?
No, he takes it full force.
Yeah,
Like
which is
the only
it's
flinch was
weird.
because he got hit with a fucking box.
So I'm wondering, well, I mean, everyone, if you're listening to this, I hope you've seen the episode. So knowing like what's happening to them, like I'm wondering if he's not flinching because he just doesn't have any outside instincts.
Yeah, I
You
know.
like
I know. You would think, but they also have their banter.
Yeah.
You know, they're not like complete robots. But she also
did it pretty fast.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
reading out of that book. He
Yeah.
didn't see her. She just picked that thing up and
That's
chucked
true.
it at him.
And there's like stupid like jokes. Well, good thing you're at an orientation. Like, are you feeling disoriented? Like,
Yeah,
and she's just like, fuck this guy.
yeah. He asks her, after she chucks it at his head, he asks her to take a seat and calm down.
Yeah.
She demands to be let out, but she must ask 3 times, but doesn't know.
And he
Yeah.
kind of starts to get a little bit more human with her here. You know,
Yeah,
like I've been here. I've been in this position. I've felt what you felt.
Yeah,
Kind of going off book a little bit, which I think is going to piss boss lady off.
yeah. How he woke up with the same disembodied voice asking the same questions.
Mhm.
And he told the voice he would find him and kill him.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, well, did you kill him? And he says, no. And that they became best friends.
Yeah.
So that was Petey.
Petey. We had a bird
Yeah.
named Petey growing up. That was the best bird.
And then he goes right back into the predetermined speech that he's reading.
Mm-hmm.
You see, life is like a seesaw.
No, we already did that.
No, he starts it again.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, and she starts freaking out again and asks to be let out. And he's like, ask me again.
Yeah.
And she's like, what?
You've asked me twice.
Yeah, he was like, if you ask me 3 times, I have to let you go.
Yeah.
You know, and she's like, Mark, I would like to be let out of this place.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, Irv, open the door.
Yeah. They start walking down. He starts leading her down like the white hallways again. And they get to this hallway and he's like, okay, the exit is down there, but he can't turn down the little hallway to the exit door. Right? He can't even
Yeah.
watch her do it. So
No, he can't even watch her do it.
So he's like, bye. And she goes and she walks and there's a window in the door and you can see the stairwell.
To the exit
To
with
the
like
exit.
light, like sunlight coming through
Yeah.
the stairwell.
And so she opens the door
And
and finds herself back in the same hallway.
yeah, finds herself back in the same dreary white hallways.
Yeah.
So she's confused and she goes back through the door because when she turns around and looks at the window, she sees the exit again,
Yeah.
the stairwell for
Yeah.
the exit again. So she pushes the door open and it's another hallway. And the one thing I noticed, it doesn't turn into another hallway until she steps through.
Yeah.
Because she opened the door and the door opened to a stairwell.
Yeah.
And she stepped through and it just went back to a hallway. And so she walked like 5 steps down the hallway, turned around and ran.
Yeah.
And just like busted through the door
Yeah.
and fell into a hallway again.
Yeah.
So she storms back to Mark,
Yeah.
who's still standing there, you
Mhm.
know, and what she asks him,
Am I in hell?
oh yeah,
And he's like, no.
am
Yeah.
I dead?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Am I dead?
Am I in hell?
Nope.
Yeah.
Like his answers are nope.
Yeah. So I'm curious because when I first saw this scene, I was like, okay, it feels like a very like weird supernatural horror film kind of trope where, oh, I can't leave, you know, like there's just
Yeah.
some weird cycle and I keep ending up in the same spot. But then when he said to her, when she was like, I can't leave. And he's like, no, you did, but you
came back.
So basically it's because when she walks out those doors,
He doesn't know.
well, her consciousness her work conscious and her, right, it's switching off. So she walks out the door.
No,
she doesn't
no.
remember turning around and coming back in because her outside life made the decision to work there. So she turns around and goes back in, but all she can remember is walking back in that work door.
No, because they explain later that they work on the severed floor. So she has to go up the elevator to go back into her normal consciousness.
But maybe there's like a room that turns it off, right? And that's why Petey can't go down there. Or not Petey,
Mark.
Mark can't go down there with her. Because there's no way, like, this isn't a supernatural thing.
No, he can't watch because when she goes through that door and it closes behind him, he's not going to see her in that stairwell through the window. He's just going to see the stairwell. So she goes through the door. They don't want him watching because it will make him curious as to like what the fuck is going on.
So what do you think is happening? Why do you think she keeps ending up in the same hallway?
Well, she's not in the same hallway.
But she is. She comes because the last time she just walks back to Mark.
Yeah, because she went through the door, came back through it, went through it again, and then came back through it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But why do you think she turns around and comes back?
If I go out that door right there, okay, I'm on that side. Then I come back and she's back in the hallway where Mark is.
Mm-hmm.
And then she runs and busts through and she's back in that hallway. And then she comes back through and that's when she comes to Mark because, you know.
Yeah, I know, but I think they're making it, I don't know. I think we should agree to disagree on this because
Well, I know that they're making it to where like you made the decision to do this.
Yeah.
You're not leaving. I know that, but when she walks out that door, she doesn't gain her consciousness back because she's obviously confused when she goes through the door. She's like, what the fuck? Where's the stairwell? It's just another hallway.
Yeah.
You know? So she goes back through and then goes back to Mark.
But when I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's weird.
It is. It's definitely weird. But she goes up to Mark and she's like, am I dead? Nope. This is some kind of hell or something? No. Then why the fuck can't I leave? He's like, well, you did just leave just now out into the stairwell, at least, but you came back.
Yeah.
She's like, I did not. You did. Come on.
Yeah.
And he just walks away and she follows.
Yeah.
And then it clicks to him outside of Miss Coben's office, Mr. Middledick, is putting a Band-Aid on his head, and it's Miss Coben explaining to Helly, like, weaponizing office equipment on your first day, you're gonna be fun.
She's also like, I've wanted to like beat the shit out of Mark.
I've wanted to pummel
times.
Mark myself, but I'm his employer and he is your department chief, so we'll both have to be strong.
She feels a certain way about Mark, you can tell.
Yeah.
And I wonder, well, I'll ask later. Okay. So now she tells her, like, well, here's the last part of your orientation that Mark can't fuck up, basically.
Yeah, because it's a DVD.
Yeah, it's a video.
Oh, yeah, it's a video.
It's a video. So she goes back to the big office with the 4 cubicles type things and they're plug-in. And it reminds me of when you had a substitute teacher and they'd roll in the TV and VCR for like movie day.
And this is where I started like, okay, in what fucking time frame are we? Because like all of the computers look like they're from like the 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe early 90s, but then they hand her a DVD.
Right.
For the video.
Yeah.
At first when she took it out of the drawer and put it on the desk, I was like, oh, is it
like one of those, like,
is it on a fucking floppy disk?
Laser disc?
Well, because you couldn't see, it just looked like the,
oh yeah.
it was just a package.
Sleeve.
Yeah. So I thought it was like one of those big floppy disks. And I was like, how the fuck did I get video on that? Because I think that just does data, like text data. It was a DVD. And it clicks to the same room where the cubicles are. Mm-hmm. And they're all sitting there.
Watching her
watch this video.
Which is her. Talking to the camera, basically saying, you signed up for this. You wanted this severed job and procedure, which basically separates your work memory from your outside home life memory.
I wrote down the whole speech.
All right, why don't you say it?
My name is Helly R. I'm making this video roughly 2 hours before it will be shown to me. I have, under my own free will, elected to undergo the procedure colloquially known as severance. I give consent for my perceptual chronologies to be surgically split, separating my memories between my work life and my personal life. I acknowledge that henceforth my access to my memories will be spatially dictated. I will be unable to access my outside recollections whilst on Lumen's basement severed floor, nor retain my work memories upon my ascent. I am aware that this procedure is comprehensive and irreversible. I make these statements freely.
Spatially dictated, right? So maybe there was a stairwell. She goes up the stairs, realizes, no, and maybe there's a sign if you want to go back. But then the only memory we're seeing is the work one where she's coming in and out of that hallway door because she's deciding to come back. But as soon as she steps in, she forgets that she decided to be there and is like, what the fuck is happening?
No.
Okay. We'll see what happens later on in this series.
So
I'll have to watch it again. It's fine.
So you don't even want me to explain it to you?
I mean, go ahead.
When she runs and jumps through the door, she falls on the ground and it shows it from the hallway she ran from. She falls on the ground and she falls in the stairwell. And as soon as the door closes, it clicks to her laying on the ground and she looks up and she's in a hallway.
Yeah.
So that door, that window is not real. It's probably a fucking TV screen on the window that's showing you a stairwell.
Yeah.
You know?
But I wonder, okay, so maybe there's not a stairwell, but I wonder if there's some sort of zone, right? Like that's the door instead of like going up the elevator. If they've spatially dictated some zone, which again is why Mark can't go down that hallway, that makes you like remember or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yep.
I'm sure we'll find out something about that weird hallway at some point.
Probably.
So she's watched the video and now it seems like she's a little bit more accepting of what's happening, like slightly less freaked out, but still a little strange. And she just goes and she sits down at the empty desk that was once Petey's, and they all just kind of get to work, which is like, okay, there's no actual orientation of what she's going to be doing at this computer.
I know. I don't know. Yeah. I mean.
And they showed Mark working, and it was weird. It was just like the series of numbers and these little buckets. It looked like an old 80s like Atari video game. Yeah. And like some numbers would get bigger, and then he'd just drag those into a bucket.
Yeah.
Like what
at the bottom.
What the fuck are they doing?
Yeah, it was very weird.
So, he also tells her, she's like, so, once she's kind of accepted it, she's like, so I never leave this place. He's like, no, you'll leave at 5. He's like, well, actually we stagger our times that we leave, so you'll leave at 5:15. And she asks him, like, do I have a family? And he's like, I don't know. We don't know in here, like, you have no recollection of your life in here, basically. Yeah, and he tells her, he's like, every time you find yourself here, it's because you chose to come back. Oh, it's the fucking hell cycle of work.
Yep.
What the fuck? I'm trying to read my notes and I don't know what that word says.
She sits at her desk, and then the person next to her, which I don't remember them giving his name, and I've watched this like 3 times now, this episode.
Yeah, I feel like
the pudgy one.
Yeah.
And he gives her like an unapproving look.
Yeah, they're all just kind of like staring at her weird, and Irv like says hi or something to her, right? Hello. But this is weird because basically, when you think about it, their work persona is trapped there, right? Because to them, it's like they never left.
Yeah.
It's so fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it's really weird. And then it clicks to Mark entering the elevator, and the clock on the wall says 4:30, so I'm guessing that's the staggering.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like 4:30, and he ascends up the floors, and as he's going up, his eyes flutter and roll back in his head, and you hear the ding, and his eyes pop open, and
you could see the change from perky Mark to fuck, back to this depressing life Mark.
Yep. And he retrieves all of his personal belongings from the locker and heads out the building. There's a note on his car windshield explaining how he got the cut on his forehead. Dear Mark, whilst carrying boxes in a room today, you slipped on an overhead projector slide and sustained a minor blow to the temple. But when you look, it's clearly on his forehead.
I mean, it's off to the side a little bit.
Yeah, it's off to one side of the forehead, but the temple is, But, enclosed, please find a VIP gift card to Pip's Bar and Grill. congratulations on the gift card.
You get a pizza party for doing a good job.
Yeah, and then he's driving out the parking lot, and he's trying to take his badge off, and he's not really paying attention. And he gets his badge up and looks up and has to slam on the brakes because it's Helly in front of his car. And she just tells him, watch maybe pay attention to the road, the icy road.
Yeah.
And he's like, sorry. But you could tell, like,
they have no idea.
They have no idea who each other are.
She's carrying like a bouquet of white roses, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like, where did those come from? Maybe it was on her car as a welcome to Lumen.
Welcome to Lumen.
Yeah, and it's weird too. They show him driving. They're the last two cars in the parking lot too as they're leaving, and they kind of like zoom out on Lumen, and everything's like so just weird and very symmetrical, and like this.
It's weird.
The building is like this big mirrored building that just kind of reflects the landscape around it. Like it's really creepy and weird looking. Like they're doing some fucking strange shit in there. You notice, so now we're seeing non-work Mark, right? We're seeing the other side of his consciousness.
Yeah.
And he goes home and is, compared to the bright, stark environment of work, his house, it's also
dark.
Stark. Like there's not much going on, but it's
it's pretty plain.
Dark. He turns on like barely a light when he gets home, immediately grabs a drink and just sits there and drinks and stares at the TV. Like you can tell he's miserable.
Yep.
He calls his neighbor because there's some ongoing battle with the trash bins and the recycle bins with his neighbor. And he's like, you keep putting him in my spot.
Yeah.
Goes to the next night. He's drinking again. And then there's a knock on his door. And you open it up and there's a woman standing there and they just kind of stare at each other. And she's like, did you forget? You forgot, didn't you?
Yeah.
No. And she's like, put on some pants. He's like, pants. I'm wearing pants. Those aren't pants. I'm guessing they were sweatpants or something.
Yeah.
And then we're driving in the car and he's talking to this woman. We find out it's his sister. You can tell by the back and forth, kind of the banter. And we're seeing a little bit more of Mark's personality now. He's kind of not happy by any means, but he is kind of cracking jokes.
Yeah, I like the way he said, so if there is no dinner, then how is it called dinner?
Yeah, a dinner party.
Yeah.
So apparently he's on this way to this dinnerless dinner party, which, Jesus Christ, this scene.
Yeah, and this is where I noticed that the sister knows what he did for this job.
Yeah.
Because she was like, how'd you get that cut on your forehead? And what did they tell you you did?
Yeah.
And you could tell she's kind of annoyed by it. Yeah. She's annoyed that he took this job.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I got a gift card.
Yeah.
She laughs. And she's like, to where? And he's like, Pips. And she's like, Pips.
Yeah, so it's probably not that great of a place.
Yeah, probably not.
So they pull up to this fucking amazing looking house.
Yeah.
And you could tell by this house that we are not in the 70s, right?
No.
Like this is not a retro show. So like everything that's going on this severed floor, and maybe it's a way to make them have no reference to the outside world, or it's very
who knows
strange.
It's very strange. I noticed, like, when we first started watching it, like the computer screens when he was at work, and then his car is like late 90s early 2000s Volvo.
Yeah, still
kind of boxy, but not like the boxy like the early 90s late 80s Volvos were. It was had a little more style to it.
Yeah.
And his sister drove like a Jeep Cherokee, and those are still boxy.
So they're definitely not back in the 70s, like 40 something years ago.
Yeah.
So they go into this dinner party, and it's at his sister's house, right?
Yeah, it's at his sister's house.
Fucking brother-in-law answers the door.
There's our captive.
Yeah. And he's like, hi, Rick. And he's like, it's Rickon. I was like, oh, I already fucking hate you.
Yeah. This guy's a total douche.
And they're sitting around this dinner table, and there's placemats, and there's silverware, and there's wine, it looks like, but no fucking food.
But no food.
And just
some guys going off about how food is life.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but you guys are having a dinner party with no fucking food.
Yeah, and they're just all talking and being fucking self-important and like, blah, 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 blah. I'm so smart. It reminded me of some parties I went to when I lived in LA, and it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Shut up. just like pseudo intellectual. I'm so smart. I know so much. Let's talk to each other about it. Type of shit. And then dickhead Rickon basically
outs him.
Well, he's like, oh yeah, Mark used to be. We find out Mark used to be a history professor.
History teacher, yeah.
And then we find out that his wife,
passed away.
He's a widow, and his wife was also some kind of really smart something.
What was she?
It doesn't matter.
She was a teacher of Russian literature.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so they were both like kind of smart, worldly people, and somehow we don't know how his wife died, and we find out he's been with Lumen for 2 years because Mark outs him as undergoing the severance process.
Yeah.
And that just sparks a whole new level of conversation.
And the guy across the table is like, he starts putting his 2 cents in on about it. And what does he say? He's like, oh, the other one is trapped there.
Yeah.
No, not trapped. And Mark goes, then what?
Yeah.
Then what? He's obviously annoyed that all these people are.
And his sister calls her husband out like, yeah, well, that
maybe
should have been Mark's choice to let people know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's
done that.
That's a big. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd probably do it. I'd probably fucking do it.
Yeah. It's not nice.
While I'm at work, just like
you would do the severed thing.
Out someone, no, I wouldn't out someone. I'd do the severed thing while I'm at work. Just fucking turn off and then when I get out of work, what better way to not bring your work frustrations home with you?
That's true, but at the same time, too, the thought of like your work persona is basically trapped there.
Be whatever.
Because you still when you're in the outside world, you still know that you're going to work, right? Because you go every day. Yeah. So that part of you is still kind of conscious of the fact that like most of my day is spent at work, but your work persona is fucking trapped there, right? Because it's just a cycle. You walk out the door, you walk right back in, right?
So fucking what? Okay. I don't see, I think the biggest problem I'd have with it is I would be curious, what the fuck do I do for work?
Yeah. I'd be a little scared because they could have you do anything.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know. Maybe they'll all end up being like assassins.
They're probably just fucking accountants.
Something crazy. Yeah.
It's the IRS.
Yeah. And then one woman turns it political. Well, I know what side of the party line you're on or something. And then
that was ridiculous. Just oh, bitch, shut up.
And Rickon's like, well, even though this is a very moral and
what he said, it's
and blah 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 controversy or whatever.
Well, Mark's decision was controversial ethically, morally, scientifically, socially, blah blah blah.
But we support you, Mark. Fuck off. And then other lady's like, I support you, Mark. And it's just I hate all of these people so much.
Yeah.
And then later on, Mark and his sister in the kitchen because she made him a sandwich because he's obviously fucking hungry because they didn't have dinner.
Yeah, and he was drinking.
Yeah, he was drinking.
Because there was one comment that his sister made about
whiskey.
Yeah,
him and his dad drinking
him and his dad had whiskey flasks that were engraved with "Whiskey is life."
Yeah, Yeah, Mike likes to drink. I'd say he drinks because he works, but he doesn't know anything about his work life.
No, I'm guessing he drinks because his wife passed.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. He lost his wife.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to find out it was something very tragic and sudden, probably.
Yeah, probably. But his sister is making a sandwich and she's like, if I gave you $3,000, would you forgive me? He was like, being that you're pregnant, I will forgo killing you until you have the baby.
Yeah. They have I really like their relationship so far. They've got a nice banter going on. And she makes him spend the night there because he's been drinking, which she drove him there. So that didn't really make sense. Right. She could have driven
Well, she probably also didn't want to drive him home.
Yeah.
She was pregnant.
Yeah. So they set him up in their future child's room, which this house was huge. They don't have another guest bedroom.
Oh, yeah, I know. But the future child's room is the size of our bottom floor.
Yeah.
Which is, probably 500, 600 square feet.
And they're in there and Mark is
in a race car
in a
bed.
race car bed, but there's also like a full-size bed and a crib. And Rickon is saying how he's in the process of weaving the sheets and he only has them done for the race car bed. So Mark has to sleep there, and he's made this like such and such pajamas, so you'll sleep really well tonight.
Yeah, Rickon's a cunt.
Yeah, Mark's like, why are all the beds in this room? And so a colleague of Rickon said that the changing of beds in your childhood can be irreparably traumatic and damaging. So
if you have all three, the child can choose when it wants to change.
When it wants to change its
and it's
bed.
like, shut the fuck
my God,
up.
Eat all the dicks, you pretentious fuck.
Yeah.
So he's sleeping in the race car bed, and he kind of wakes up in the middle of the night because he's thirsty.
Oh yeah, to go down and get a drink of water.
Yeah, so he's like at the kitchen sink drinking a glass of water, like looking out into it's like a kind of like foresty surrounding the house.
Yeah.
You know, it's not in a neighborhood. It's kind of off by itself.
Yeah.
And he sees some movement out in the trees.
So he goes to like a different vantage point, and there's just like a dude
in a business
suit.
Yeah.
Standing there staring at him through the window.
Yeah.
You know, and it's an older guy, you know, gray hair. You know, he goes outside, and a car passes by, and the lights go in his eyes, and the guy disappears.
Yeah, the guy's gone.
So I don't know if he's like, I'm fucking wasted.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'm imagining that, but you can tell he knows he saw that.
Yeah. And so the next morning he's telling his sister, there was a businessman in your yard. She's like, oh, there's like a train station or something up the road. Maybe someone like
there's a bar down the road. It's probably a stumbler.
A bar.
And she's like, speaking of stumbling.
Yeah. You
still smell like a distillery.
And he says, well, I have to dull the memories of being moved into a bed.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to dull the memories of our parents changing our beds in our childhood.
I like this Mark.
Yeah.
So now he is at the restaurant, right?
No. He's on a ladder cleaning out rain gutters.
Oh, yeah.
And looking across the landscape.
He's got a nice view from his place.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're in the Northwest somewhere. It's got to be like Pennsylvania or upstate New York. Cold. You can tell just because like the mountains. The Midwest are pretty plain. Yeah, they're pretty plainy.
Yeah, somewhere where it just gets real cold, though.
Yeah.
Because it's just covered in snow. But it's really pretty. There's like a river, looks like, in the distance.
Yeah. And then he's sitting, Pips. You don't really know where he is, but you see the VIP lounge sign. Yeah. So you're like, oh, he's at Pips. And his cell phone rings. And that's when I was like, all right, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, yeah, because he's got like an iPhone.
Yeah, it's like a newer cell phone. You know, cell phone rings.
It says Mrs. Selvig.
Yes, Mrs. Selvig, which is his neighbor, and she wants to go over
the bins,
the trash bins, because she's getting confused on which day is trash day, which day is recycling day. So she just puts them both out. But when she puts them both out, he doesn't have a spot for his. You know, and he's just like,
and she's calling him about this.
You know,
but then she's like, you can tell she asks, what are you doing? Where are you?
Yeah.
Are you alone?
Yeah.
So she's asking him these like kind of strange personal questions too. And as he's on the phone with her, this gray-haired man in a business suit sits down in the booth across from him.
The guy from the yard.
And says, hang up now. Yeah. And he's just kind of staring at him, and he's like, I gotta go. And he hangs up the phone. And the first thing this man says to him is what's for dinner, kids?
Yeah. Which is the joke they crack at work. Mm-hmm.
And he has no idea. He's like, am I supposed to know what that means?
Yeah. And then he goes on to tell him he's Petey from work. Mm-hmm. And Mark says that's impossible because everyone is severed where he works. And Petey cuts him off, saying bypassing the implant was difficult, but I had help.
Yeah.
He's confused. Mark's confused and asks, like, were you unhappy at work? Petey was like, or were you unhappy at work? Did you like this is what you did? You didn't lodge a complaint? And he was like, yeah, you did too.
Yeah.
You lodged a complaint too.
And nothing happened.
And nothing happened. And
so he was like, basically, he's like, so now you've unsevered and they're following you. And he said, Granger is following. He's like, am I supposed to know Granger? He's like, we both hate him. But do we know who Granger is?
No, he's like, so you severed, so what, they're after you? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, Fabian Grainer is probably out here now.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm guessing Fabian Grainer is probably the hitman for the company.
Maybe.
Who knows?
But it's someone that
like the
know
security. Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
But we don't know who it is yet.
No, we don't know who it is.
Haven't met that person.
What he tells them.
Things are not what they seem.
The things that I know can't be unknown. Like basically, if they kill me, someone needs to know what I know.
Yeah.
And I'd rather it be a friend.
Yeah.
And he stands up and Petey's like, or Mark is like, were we friends? And Petey turns and looks at him and goes, I was your best friend. You were a very good friend of mine.
Yeah, like basically like you liked me more than I liked you.
Yeah.
But he hands him he slips him like a greeting card too. Yeah. And he's like things are not what they seem.
What they seem, yeah.
And he leaves.
And there's an address on the back of the card or something?
Well, Mark goes out to his car, he opens up the card and it's like, happy birthday, niece. It's
a
birthday card. But there's this whole thing written inside of it basically saying, if you want to find out what's going on, go to this address in the back of the card.
Yeah.
So he's kind of looking at it and then he drives home. He pulls up into his driveway. He's walking up to his door and Mrs. Selvig
comes out
and
just like, starts jabbering.
Sorry about the mix up of the bins,
And the scene is showing the back of her head.
Like kind of her perspective looking at Mark.
Looking at him. And I kind of, just by the voice, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then it clicks around and they have their banter.
They're talking and stuff. And she's like, well, my mom was a Catholic and she said, the saints bless you 8 hours during sleep or whatever. So make sure you're getting enough sleep. And he's like, okay, I'll give him plenty of time to
Miss
bless
Selvig.
Me. Good night, Mrs. Selvig.
You fucking hag.
And he starts to turn around and now it shows her face and it's his boss.
It's Miss Coben.
Yeah. And she's just staring at him with this smile on his face. And as soon as he
goes, you're a good man.
Yeah, Mark, you're good people.
Yeah.
But just kind of
that weird creepy smile.
Stepford wife. And as soon as he goes inside, she's still kind of staring and smiling. And then the smile just slowly fades to a
so
scowl.
You can tell she doesn't get severed.
Yeah, I don't think she's severed. She's just fucking keeping an eye on him. But for how long?
Exactly. They're fucking neighbors.
Yeah.
I wonder how long.
Maybe she recruited him. Maybe him and his wife lived there.
Yeah.
His wife.
And when his wife passed, she was
killed his wife. Ooh, predictions for.
Ooh.
So, full disclosure, we decided we're only going to watch one episode and then recap it and then watch the next episode. So we don't know what happens further down the line. So we can't inadvertently give things away, but we can have predictions.
Yeah, we can have predictions. So we haven't watched episode 2.
No.
And in basic, so that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's the end of the episode. The end. Bye, everyone.
No, but we should watch that whole episode again, but I'm going to watch it 3 or 4 times. You should watch the first one because our whole banter back and forth about that hallway, if you watch that scene again, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She doesn't get her memories back, but whatever. We're not going to start this again.
Yeah.
But I noticed multiple things watching it a second and third time, more things.
There's lots of layers
stuck out to me
in the show.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So you already answered you would do the severed process if it were a thing.
It depends. It depends on what I did. If I enjoyed my job, no, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I say I would do the severed thing, but I have a lot of friends. I mean, most of my friends are from work. Yeah. I don't really have many friends that are outside of GIA.
Yeah.
Unless someone at GIA introduced us,
Well, it seems like at least from Mark's story, he didn't do this process because work was getting him down. He did this process because life was getting. That was another thing his sister said.
Yeah,
she was like
therapy.
She asked him about therapy. He hasn't been going, and she was like,
healing.
Forgetting about your wife 8 hours a day isn't the same thing as healing.
Yeah.
So he decided to do this. So there was some time in his day where he wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's why. When the episode started, I thought he was crying because he
had to go to work.
And maybe he was crying because why the fuck did I get severed? Yeah. Why did I do this?
Yeah.
But it's obviously because he's in a lot of pain because he lost his wife.
See, I didn't know at what point the show started. So I didn't know if he was like, I hate my job so much and I'm crying. And we see what led him to decide to do this process. Yeah. But we go in and it's already been done. It's already been set up. But I really like how they kind of revealed things along the way. It was really well done. Ben Stiller directed this, which
he's a really good director.
Like Ben Stiller is Zoolander to me. It's like funny because the shots, like I'm not like a film person, but you know.
Oh, the cinematography.
The cinematography is amazing. The sets, the look
sets
of the show
good.
is amazing. This complete disconnect from this like weird retro 70s looking floor and then the outside modern world. And obviously this is a modern technology to be able to do this. Like it's really cool and really well done and definitely pertinent to, you know, how people feel about work.
And work life.
Feeling like you're trapped at work and you spend most of your waking hours at work, where if you have this process, one side of you are always at work. And the other side of you, well, you don't have to think about work while you're not there, but who knows what's going on in your real life.
I mean, if I worked in a place that had those computers and I just clicked on numbers
oh my God.
and drug them into boxes, fuck yeah, I'd get severed. Like there is nothing about that job. Like the only thing about that job that would suck about being severed is meeting people and not being able, like not knowing who they are outside
but
of
that
work.
wasn't his job. That's not why he got severed, right?
Oh no, he got severed.
And then that was his job.
Which
is making me think, because they were doing nothing. He was moving numbers into a bucket. Like what the fuck?
That's macro data.
There's going to be some big reveal about what they're actually doing down there, right? It's
it can't just be this monkey work. Yeah.
They're lab rats of some sort.
Who knows?
Yeah. So anyway, let us know if you would get severed.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think. Like I said, we're going to be recrapping. We're going to recrap this. We're going to recap the rest of these episodes over on Patreon. So join us over there.
Yeah.
And you'll hear the rest of these. Otherwise, they'll just be lost forever.
Forever and ever.
Forever and ever. But thank you for listening. Let us know your thoughts on the show. And anything else you want to add?
Bye, fuckers.
Bye, fuckers. Thank you for listening to the Fuck My Work Life podcast. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. You can support the show by telling your friends or joining our Patreon. We also have some sweet Fuck My Work Life merch available over at Teespring. All links can be found in the show notes. Send your workplace stories to fmwlpod@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 310-818-3273. Be sure to follow us on all the socials at FMWLpod. And remember to support indie podcasts. They work hard to bring you a variety of amazing content. Until next week, bye fuckers.